Just about every kid, at some point, realizes that special kinetic joy of jumping on your parents' bed. My sisters and I used to bounce so high we could almost touch the ceiling, and each time with our collective feet jumping in unison, we'd get a little bit higher and a little bit dizzier. But since a bevy of bouncing boys and girls is bad for a box brain, most parents try to put the kibosh on this behavior with groundings or spankings. In my parents' case, when I was 7 years old, they bought a memory foam mattress without telling us. Fall for doom. We all know that kids are full of energy, but technically, all of us are. And when we step, stomp, or jump, that energy is released. And whether the target is the ground or a $700 Posturepedic, that energy is usually lost. Until now, that is. According to the July 30th, 2008 Boston Globe, we may be one step closer to clean energy. Two MIT's graduate students have developed what they call crowd farming, based on the idea that the energy of a large moving crowd can be captured through special floor design and used for electricity. This new research has potential to help us gain a whole new untapped source for power, ourselves. So, in order to better understand crowd farming, we will first explore how this idea was developed, then see how it works before finally examining the future of this groundbreaking idea. As Confucius once said, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Let's begin. First, let's walk through how the idea for crowd farming came about by discussing its origins and its progress. Crowd farming's inspiration was intriguing. In fact, according to Futurist magazine, June 3rd, 2008, both of the MIT graduate students, James Graham and Thaddeus Shuzik, had their own separate stimuli. Back in 2003, when Graham was living in New York City, he experienced the blackout that occurred in August of that year. And if you've ever been to New York in August, you know how hot it can get. Millions of New Yorkers were forced out of their sweltering apartments and wandered the streets. Now, watching these hordes of people, Graham got to thinking about the potential for pedestrian power. Zizek had a similar eureka moment in 2006 in Boston. He was at the City Hall Plaza watching the World Cup on a giant screen. Thousands of soccer fans filled the plaza, jumping up and down with excitement after watching Italy win their fourth cup. The floor shook, and Zizek shivered. The energy that was being expended was awe-inspiring. By the floor, that shivering thing was just like for a fact. As James Graham told the Yorkshire Post on March 20th, 2008, the events that took place in New York and Boston had a frightening yet compelling impact on them. Was there a way to harness the power of all these people? As chance would have it, according to the Christian Science Monitor on June 3rd, 2008, they were paired off in one of their architectural classes for a project in which they had to come up with an alternative energy infrastructure for the Portanova train station in Torino, Italy. And you thought your Speech 100 assignment was a toughie. The boys put their heads together and had similar ideas, and presto, the crowd farming project was born. Now, it actually wasn't until later, when they won first place in a major construction contest, that they thought, this project might actually help us take a step in the greener direction. Now that we know how the idea came about, let's go over the workings of a crowd farm by first discussing the mechanics of it, then going over some similar projects in use today. University Wire, September 1st, 2008, tells us that this floor of the future may be made of bricks that lower slightly when under the pressure of footsteps. Now, the slippage of those bricks then creates friction, and that energy passes through a dynamo, which is just a cool word for a spinning generator that converts energy into electricity, almost like an inverse earthquake. Essentially, the new building floor plan will be designed to capture all of the human movement energy that is usually lost and make electricity. According to the August 8, 2008 Hindustan Times, the energy that's created in one single step can power two 60-watt light bulbs. Now, if we multiply that step by, say, 28,527 steps, you can power a train for a second. But if you took that many steps, you wouldn't need to take a train because you'd already be there. To better illustrate their idea, the MIT students created a special stool to show how their design would work. The November 4th, 2008 USA Today tells us that when a person or a ghost pictured here. Sits on the stool, the weight of their body causes the flywheel to spin, sending electrical power to a panel of lights. Now, once the researchers got their audience members to stop bouncing up and down on the stools, they got to see the crowdfunding project on a much smaller scale. Their simple human movements translated into energy. Now, this is not a totally new proposal. In fact, we see many versions of this design in use today. Many bikers, for example, pedal their way to a well-lit ride using bicycle-powered headlights. The August 25th, 2008 Los Angeles Times tells us of the green microgym right here in Portland, Oregon, that uses special stationary bikes that, when in use, use that similar dynamo effect to cut down on their energy costs. Now, what sets the crowd farm apart from those previously formed mechanically produced energy is that it operates on a bigger scale, using large crowds and objects that aren't usually designed to move much. Floors. So now that we know the workings of the crowd farm a little bit better, let's go over the future in store for this bright idea. As St. Jerome would often say, solvitur ambulando. To solve a problem, walk around. And it seems we may do just that. Since the crowdfarming project is intended for larger groups of people in high-flow areas, such as train stations, political demonstrations, and sporting events, the April 3rd, 2008 U.S. Newswire tells us that the project works best on an urban scale, in cities like New York, Boston, or Green Bay, after a Packers game. It can be used on most floor surfaces to capture the most energy possible in public areas. The February 3rd, 2009 American Scholar tells us that this energy can be used virtually anywhere, from lighting up buildings to powering up the speakers at your next rock concert. In fact, we may soon see this idea go military. According to the previously cited University Wire, the U.S. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA for short, is looking to harvest that similar kinetic energy to power soldiers' communication devices. The agency is researching steel strike generators, which will be embedded into their roof field and produce upwards of 3 to 6 watts of power, just like soldiers walking. And of course, the medical field wanted a piece of the action as well. A group of British companies is on its way to release an in-body microgenerator, which will convert energy from joint movements, heartbeats, and even breathing, says the Sun Herald on March 22nd, 2008. Now, this tiny device will help decrease size and extend battery life of pacemakers and other medical instruments, saving patients from costly surgical replacements. Ultimately, this crowd farm may only be a small part of the future of energy, but it does light the way, so to speak, to new ways of thinking of energy sources that are sustainable, non-polluting, and one which we can all contribute to. With more than 6.7 billion people walking around the planet, MSNBC News reported on August 18, 2008,